An update on the COVID-19 situation here. 469 new cases were confirmed today. They include 2 community cases, a Singaporean and a work pass holder. There were also 15 imported cases who had been placed on stay-home notices upon arrival here.
Migrant workers living in dormitories made up the vast majority of the other cases. The total number of COVID-19 cases in Singapore is now over 50,800. More details will be released later.
Meanwhile, human trials for the Duke-NUS COVID-19 vaccine could begin in Singapore as early as this week. 108 healthy volunteers will be injected with this lunar COVID-19 vaccine developed by Duke-NUS Medical School and US pharmaceutical company Arcturus Therapeutics.
Preliminary studies on animal models had already shown that the vaccine was safe and didn't have any side effects. And if things go according to plan, results from the trial could be available by October or November.
Countries are looking to be among the first to secure sufficient doses to inoculate their populations. Singapore is one of 75 nations to submit an expression of interest to join the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility.
The COVAX financing scheme will ensure fast and equitable distribution of a vaccine so that those who need it most have access to it.
So there will be some element that the countries that are paying to develop these vaccines, the countries that are putting a lot of their funding behind rapid vaccine development are going to see some preference. I think that the one thing that will help everybody is that there are a large group of countries and organizations that are really working on a multilateral solution that will guarantee a certain percentage of the needed vaccine upfront for all the countries that will sign on to this concept known as the COVAX. And that will allow countries to have enough vaccine to vaccinate the most vulnerable population, the elderly, people with underlying conditions, and healthcare workers. And then, that kind of mechanism, that multilateral mechanism, hopefully will counteract some of the negative effects that are going to be created inadvertently by vaccine nationalism.
Science correspondent Audrey Tan conducted that interview with Dr. Jerome Kim, and she joins us now. Welcome, Audrey. So, vaccine nationalism and how organizations can combat it, that's a fascinating topic. But before we get into it, I guess, how does vaccine nationalism occur in the first place?
So, as Dr. Kim pointed out during that interview, he says that it is inevitable that vaccine nationalism could develop. And this is mainly because there are many countries that are investing quite heavily in vaccine development, and they may have an expectation of reciprocity. So, for example, the US government has invested quite heavily in this. They have Operation Warp Speed. It's an initiative that involved the federal government pumping in about US $10 million to accelerate the development of a potential COVID-19 vaccine. And we have already seen some reports about how this vaccine nationalism could play out. So French pharmaceutical company Sanofi, its CEO went on record as saying that the US could get the vaccine first because the country had contributed a lot to its vaccine development project. So he later had to backtrack because there was some backlash from the French government and from the European Union. And that also raises the question of equitable distribution of vaccines, whether the countries and the people who need it the most would have access to that.
Then how do multilateral solutions like the COVAX facility, for example, help with countering vaccine nationalism?
So COVAX stands for the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access, and the COVAX facility is a multilateral financing mechanism that would involve countries who have made expressions of interest, which is 75 to date, including Singapore. They would be contributing to the development and manufacture of a vaccine from their public finance funds. And from this COVAX facility, the countries can get access to vaccine doses for about 20% of its population. So that's one. And the COVAX facility also includes an additional mechanism that would try to get countries to voluntarily contribute to a fund which can be used for up to 90 other developing countries. So it could ensure that, everyone in the world would get access to vaccine doses. And Dr. Kim said during that interview that such multilateral solutions could be useful in countering some negative effects of vaccine nationalism that we've seen so far.
Right. Well, Audrey, there are 25 candidate vaccines worldwide with 141 more in a preclinical phase. So do you think we'll end up in a situation where we actually have more than one COVID-19 vaccine then?
So I think that we already have vaccines in the clinical trials, which is human trials, is a good sign. And there were also recently published findings that have been encouraging. But I think it's still too early to say, which one would be the vaccine that we would see being rolled out uh, internationally. So I mean, if I could just go back to what a vaccine aims to do. So a vaccine aims to show the immune system an important part of the virus, and then training the immune system to be able to recognize the pathogen without actually exposing the patient to the risk of disease. And if I could use this analogy that I heard on a podcast, it's like, for example, if you want to train a classroom full of children to recognize a potential danger, for example, a wild bear, you don't have to actually bring the bear into the classroom. You could maybe show the children a photograph or a video of the bear and teach them how to behave when they do see a wild bear. So this is exactly what a vaccine aims to do. And right now, all the vaccines that we have seen all have different mechanisms of this training procedure. So for example, Duke-NUS, which is a vaccine being developed by Duke-NUS scientists in Singapore, co-developed they are working with an American pharma company to do this. Their vaccine aims to kind of like show the human immune system a video of how the virus is, so that it trains the immune system to produce your antibodies and T cells needed to combat this virus. So, all these vaccines have different ways of training the body, and I think it's still too soon to say whether we'll get one or whether we'll more. We'll just have to wait and see what the science shows us.
Right, well, fantastic. So thanks you so much, Audrey, for the analogy as well. That was the Straits Times' science correspondent, Audrey Tan. You can watch her full interview with Dr. Jerome Kim of the International Vaccine Institute on our YouTube channel. The link is in the description below.